Hi, and welcome to the Total Recall Show. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life, The King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And today we're talking about Black Adam.
The new DC flick, we had official Total Recall business.
You know, it's the hot movie. It's the one everybody's talking about. Taking advantage of sort of this like lull. It's like we're not being bombarded with constant, Marvel movies or whatever.
Yeah.
So now it's time for this kind of like offbeat DC thing to kind of slip in.
You're right. It feels more like relaxed. It's like anything could come out.
It's like, who's Black Adam? Black Adam, super obscure
Never
character.
heard of him for this.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people are in your boat. I have my history with him, and I did the episode about his first and only appearance for like decades. It was like, he shows up in 1941 or something, 1945 maybe, and then the next time he shows up is like 1977.
Wow.
So. But yeah, just like always like a memorable character, just the way he fit into like the Shazam Captain Marvel mythology. It's so funny that it's like, it's a DC movie that spun off from a guy called Captain Marvel. Like, of course people are going to be confused. A superhero movie being about a comic nobody ever heard of. That's like been well established because we had like Guardians of the Galaxy, not as obscure as Black Adam, but still pretty obscure. Like, not something you like, the average person has ever heard of, unless you're like, like an intense comics fan,
And even Shazam, like, I recognized like the look of the character, but wasn't really familiar with. With
Shazam like occupies this weird space because the whole Shazam Captain Marvel thing that like Black Adam is a part of, massive in the 1950s and the 1940s, and it outsold Superman. It was like one of the most successful comics. It was huge, but that's just so long ago. It's so far in the distant past, and then it like went away. It got kind of like sued out of existence by DC Comics, and then DC kind of swooped up and like bought the rights to it. It was kind of like, if your competition's too stiff, you sue them. That's basically what happened. And it was at a time when comics were kind of, having a hard time anyway, sort of like, the late 50s. So they're kind of like, yeah, whatever, we'll get out of the superhero business. On the ride over here, I heard this movie had the biggest opening of any movie The Rock has been in.
That's great.
Which is kind of surprising, like kind of astounding. I thought like, oh, we must have had something
else.
But it's like these superhero movies, even a superhero movie of a superhero you never heard of. It's like,
If I'm going to be in a superhero movie, I want it to be the most powerful superhero. He can't just be like...
Well, him as Black Adam, it kind of made me think, like, why didn't they cast him as Shazam, as Captain Marvel? Like, he kind of... But it's like, I guess, like, The Rock... Like, he's heavily involved in the sort of, like, business end and creative end of this. So it's like... He found something where it's like, I can make this work. Like I think he's doing so much of the heavy lifting to like kind of make this thing into a thing. Black Adam on his own, don't know if people would have shown up for it, but like Black Adam with the Rock and his full blessing or whatever, it kind of sells it.
His business backing. I'm surprised during the movie. Do you remember he's like Black Adam's like. And don't forget, try Terramana Tequila or whatever.
Shazam did like well enough, and I enjoyed the Shazam movie, but it's like kind of weird. Just a couple years later, it's almost like we're doing like a remake of Shazam. We're doing this like dark reinterpretation of this grim and gritty interpretation of Shazam. Like you could almost picture his costume being the Shazam costume, just like kind of covered with like soot or whatever. Because even like in the early scenes of the movie. The lightning bolt isn't just this like gold lightning bolt shining through. It's like covered with a lot of soot
and dust.
Like by the end of the movie, it kind of gets sort of cleaned off and becomes.
And he's getting like cut up too early in the movie too. His costume gets beat up.
I didn't know a ton of what to expect, and you knew even less.
Yeah.
So it's like that is a really nice way to go into a movie because then like every little bit of it was kind of like a delightful surprise.
What was that gang you said was in the Kirby comic?
Oh, Intergang. So yeah, like it's this country called Kondak, which I guess is kind of like Kandahar combined with Iraq or something.
Combined together,
Like at least the name. But it's like this country that's been taken over by Intergang mercenaries. They all have that mercenary accent. The mercenary guys that are in like Chappie or
yes.
or District 9, you know, it's like those guys, but they have their own country, and it's run by Intergang, that was like a Jack Kirby creation. Intergang, it was like his, you know, you got Interpol, this international police force. What about Intergang, an international gang force? They're kind of like created and bankrolled by Darkseid, the Lord of Apocalypse, and they didn't really spell any of that out too much in this. They've spelled that out in like other DC movies, and there were like some big holes in the ground that they were digging that made me think like, oh, those are supposed to be like the fire pits of Apocalypse, that like
That's
you know
awesome.
that they're gonna, you know, and we saw that in the Snyder cut of Justice League, that they're gonna bring Apocalypse to Earth and build these giant like fire pits.
They were digging for that, like those things to make up like the crown,
And it was like the crown of Sabbac. Now, when I was like working on superpowers and stuff, I was digging deep into like obscure DC stuff to like see what I could work with. Black Adam was in the mix. I don't think I did too much specific stuff with Black Adam. In like I did things that actually like made it to print. I did things with like the Shazam mythology and stuff. I don't remember having any kind of big plans for like Black Adam. But Sabbac, when I learned about him, I was like, I can do something with this, and I kind of like, I was gonna turn him into sort of like almost like a Satan soldier, but for like DC Comics.
That's cool.
And but yeah, it's like with like a big pentagram. Like he's in the comic. In the comic, he looks like a classic devil. He's like all red, has horns, mustache, and beard. And in the movie, he kind of is you know, kind of close to that too.
Yeah.
Kind of like a little more like Clash of the Titans kind of.
Definitely.
I was gonna do, but like I love. It's like he's got, you know, you say Shazam and you get the power of Solomon, Hercules, Achilles, all this. You know, each letter spells out something. And then for Black Adam, the Shazam is like a different set of like wizards, and like that's explained in the comics too. In Black Adam's second appearance, Billy Batson asks in 1977. Billy Batson asks the wizard Shazam, if Black Adam is 5,000 years old, how can he get the powers of Solomon, Hercules, and Achilles? Because they weren't born yet. And he's like, oh no, it's a it's a different Shazam. It's a different S-H-A. It's like all these wizards that like were from like Egypt, these like Egyptian wizards that like predate those. And so then Sabbac, you know, as I'm doing my research, I see Sabbac has like, it's like the S, like if he says Sabbac, he becomes this like super being, and the S is like Satan, the A is Asmodeus, the B is Beelzebub.
That's so
you know, it's like
cool.
so I'm like, okay,
that.
I got to do something with that. You know,
Dude, that's so great. Like, and having the pentagram on his chest is bad. Your superpower stuff is like genius.
Like, so it's kind of cool. Like, so for me, like I'm watching it and I see that crown. I'm like, oh, and they're talking about Sabbac, and I'm like, oh, Sabbac, this is gonna be cool.
It's fresh to me.
Let me
like,
see.
It's fun.
Tell me a story. You know,
with the stuff that's coming out, like Marvel and DC, I'm just kind of like avoiding anything in advance.
Sure,
anymore. Because like
it just works better that way.
Like I'm going in colder than I've ever gone in before.
Well, I mean, that was like superheroes and stuff. That was what made them so big to begin with. Was like, you know, Superman. What's super? You know, like the novelty. If they've kind of been like dissected to death, the novelty's not there. But this is like, it's like Black Adam. I never heard it. You know, what is this?
It was exciting.
And then even like, you know, in the 60s, it's like Spider-Man. Who's Spider-Man? You know, and when I was a kid, I would always get so excited if I found out about a superhero that I never heard of before. Like when I found out about like Solar Man of the Atom, I'm like, who's, like, I've never seen this guy before. He looks completely weird. Learning about like Jack Kirby's New Gods and stuff, it's like, whoa, like I heard of Darkseid from the cartoons, but I didn't know about like, you know, Orion and all these other guys.
Dude, from the movie, I learned with Dr. Fate.
Dr. Fate, yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah,
I never heard of him before.
Like, going into this movie, I had heard Dr. Fate was going to be in it. I heard Hawkman. But, like, again, it's like when you see it in the movie, and it's like, oh, this is a Justice Society movie. And it was so nice that the Justice Society aspect is kind of held back as a surprise, because I would put that on the poster. I'd be like, Black Adam and the Justice Society or something,
yeah,
because it is like, you know.
You get... That's interesting that they even held back with that.
Yeah, because that feels like a sell. That feels kind of like when they were doing John Carter, Warlord of Mars, and they left out the Warlord of Mars, but I just call him John Carter. It's like, okay, what is this? You know, this is Michael Clayton. Like, what is this? It's
They're
just,
like
it's just a
Coach
guy's
Carter.
name. Yeah, Coach Carter. Like, yeah, Jimmy Carter. It's it's Jimmy Carter's brother's life story or something.
When they made Billy beer on Mars.
Yeah.
Billy Carter.
We're gonna do a superhero movie that revolves around like a badass version of an established superhero.
I thought we were gonna see Shazam like.
I was surprised that this is like a remake of Shazam 5 years later, but like a cool this is like the Dark Knight Returns version of Shazam, but instead of Dark Knight Returns coming out like 40 years after Batman is invented, it's coming out
5 years.
Yeah.
$5 says it's The Rock. He's like, Zachary Levi, you forget about it. You're not upstage The Rock.
I mean, I've been enjoying these DC movies. I liked the Snyder Cut, but you can see that they don't have much of a plan. That's kind of weird thinking. We're gonna do a Shazam movie, and then a couple years later, we're not gonna do Shazam 2. We're gonna do a completely.
Remember The Rock had muscle reduction surgery?
Yeah. They had these flashbacks of him pre-muscles, and it's what did they have to do to
He was like, "There's no way The Rock is gonna have muscles reduced." Him as Shazam is what he wanted to be in the past.
Right. Yeah. He's like Shazam, and then he turns into the Rock. There's the kid on the skateboard.
Oh
at the beginning, and I thought what was going to happen was that kid was going to become the Billy Batson of Black Adam, where I thought he was going to go into the cave, and then if he says Shazam, he turns into the Rock.
That's great. They should have done that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they were kind of kind of leading you that way. If you know the mythology, it's okay, here's a kid, he's going to do it. But I was kind of surprised that and maybe in an earlier draft it was that,
It's just funny, The Rock probably has so much juice in these movies. He's like, hell no.
I'm going to be the alter ego, and I'm going to be the kid, and I'm going to be
he's like, I'm going to be the kid. Or he's like, he's like, I refuse to show any weakness.
Right, yeah. No, my alter ego is every bit as badass as my superhero version.
You're like, it doesn't make any sense, Rock. They're like, you want to tell him? No, you tell him that he's not.
Well, because in the Captain Marvel Shazam comics, Billy Batson was kind of he was his alter ego, but he was also kind of like a sidekick too, where it's okay, you got the kid sidekick, but he becomes the superhero instead of being running around next to the superhero.
We were saying that kid felt like John Connor?
John Connor, yeah. It was definitely when you're making a movie, you got to sell it, and you got to figure out, you got to have. They talk about comps. They talk about comparables, and it's okay, yeah, he'll have a relationship with The Rock that's kind of like John Carter and Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator in Terminator 2, and so it was this kid on a skateboard, and then his killing machine older brother, or a father figure.
Stand on one leg.
Yeah.
He's like, remember,
and it worked.
Yeah. I'm here for a one-liner too. What was his one-liner?
Well, yeah, because John Connor was trying to teach the Terminator to have one-liners. He's like, if you really want to smoke them off, say "Hasta la vista, baby." So and he's coaching, and he's giving them, and it's tell him the man in black sent you. And they did a good job of making that kind of pay off.
He's like, tell him Johnny Cash was here or whatever.
When you get to Folsom Prison, tell him the man in black
sent you. Johnny Cash? He's like, no, we need to rework this.
This should have been a musical episode where we're doing John. I hear the train a-coming, it's coming round the bend. I fell into a burning ring of fire, a ring of fire. There's that U2 song that I went out walking through streets paved with gold.
Tell him the man in black sent you.
Well, if sounds like this movie had a good weekend, so they might start calling The Rock Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash, just from Rocky Cash, June
Carter Cash,
June Carter of Mars.
Pierce Brosnan shows up as Dr. Fate, and it's so cool, kind of cool, the Justice Society. It was kind of this old man Justice League. It was a Justice League of people who were over the hill, and it was because it was the Justice Society came out in the 40s. The Justice League came out in the late 50s, early 60s. Okay. So it was it's when they meet each other, it's like, oh, these were the guys from 20 years ago, you know. So they're all like old men, you know, and so that's kind of like it's like Dr. Fate's been through a whole journey. That is an interesting choice, like casting, you know, a very mature Pierce Brosnan as a superhero, you know, and he's all like ripped, you know, he's got the CGI body, you know, it's kind of like Count Dooku during the lightsaber fight, where it's like they just paste Christopher Lee's head on.
It shows his, like, Count Dooku when he fights Yoda, shows his pecs.
He had a really great presence, and the Dr. Fate, like, I don't know a ton about Dr. Fate. I've read my share of Dr. Fate comics, but it's like stuff from the 40s, stuff from the 70s. For me, mainly, Dr. Fate was like, just like when they had the Superpowers toy collection, it was another one of those things of like, this toy that looked super cool, has this cool helmet, this cool color scheme, and it's like, who is that guy? Like, I thought I knew all the superheroes. Who's that guy? I want to find out more about this guy.
And Pierce Brosnan's performance was fantastic, because, like, sometimes you feel in, like, these... The actors might be like... The actors might be like, hey, this is a big thing, I just want to get in on the action.
Right.
It felt like he was, like, fully invested in this.
I think you're right. Yeah, he was there for it. He wasn't like, oh, you know, this'll make my grandchildren happy or something.
Yeah.
Like, he was like really, you know, pulling it off. Like, I thought he was, and Dr. Fate's kind of like the DC equivalent of Doctor Strange, even though Dr. Fate, you know, predates Doctor Strange. So it is kind of, you know, like, you could kind of see playing off of there.
I was thinking about that. Yeah. And yeah, because sometimes it's like these big actors be like, everyone's getting invited to the party. I want to, you know,
he's gonna ham it up. Yeah, I mean, I think he came across really well. Like, I think this was a good showcase for him, and it's like, you know, a lot better than, you know, if he had been like in a standalone Dr. Fate movie. And of course, I think if they did a standalone Dr. Fate movie, they probably would have cast like a younger actor, like, you know, somebody a little more like in their prime. But it's like, because he's like a supporting character, and his interplay with Hawkman, like I was just so glad to see Dr. Fate in a movie, see Hawkman in a movie, see the Hawk ship.
That was sick. It reminded me of what's the X-Men ship?
Yeah, Blackbird, the X-Men jet. But yeah, again, like the Hawkman jet goes back to like late 50s, and you know, I just like recently I've been watching like a bunch of Hawkman cartoons, and like that spaceship features so much. Like, he just zips around in this spaceship, and he's got his little eagle best friend, and like he just like, you know, pops out of the hatch and like, you know, starts.
The actor that played Hawkman was great too. I'm trying to think if I saw him in anything before.
Yeah, he was really good. The suit looked good. The CGI, like one of the defining traits of Hawkman in the comics is he's got this amazing arsenal, and it like. In sort of like the classic Hawkman stories of like the 50s and 60s, he'd go into his arsenal and he'd be like, okay, what am I going to pick out this time? And he's kind of like a weapons historian, so he might like take something from like medieval Europe and then something from like another planet or whatever, you know.
That makes sense, because he had like a mace at one point.
Yeah, in this, it's like he has this like everything device that kind of like switches into like,
different
mace
things.
and, you know. So just really cool. And so, yeah, we got like a Justice Society thing. And then they had that guy, Atom Smasher.
Oh, yeah.
Who was like, he's the Atom. Like, they kind of took like the Justice Society Atom and kind of like merged him with like the other Atom. And then gave him like, it's like, you know, you think about the Marvel equivalents. The Marvel equivalents would be like Ant-Man. But they're like, okay, Marvel, we've seen Giant Man, so we gotta have, you know, like, I don't remember the Atom. Yeah, I don't remember Atom or Atom Smasher having like a growth power, but you know.
There's a part of the movie his suit got ripped. His like dick knocks a building over.
There was somebody, I don't know if it was like there was somebody who wanted to do a comic about Dr. Manhattan's penis, because like there's the scenes in Watchmen where Dr. Manhattan, he's naked, and he'll like turn giant to like, you know, blow stuff up or whatever, and like so like just a story where it's like just focused on like what his I
can't remember
swinging
what I was listening to. It was like a podcast. Somebody, the actor that played the naked,
Billy Crudup, was it?
No, not Billy Crudup. The guy that was like the body double is passed away. So like the dick, the stunt dick guy
because
died.
The way Dr. Manhattan's dick swung in Watchmen seemed very like CGI animated. So that like I don't think it was a real dick. I think it was like there was like a team of technicians who gave it like a bounce, a squash, and stretch. Like they applied like every like animation principle.
So it was like a Dirk Diggler scenario.
No, I think it was like just because it moved like in a very like it had you know, body language, and a character arc.
Yeah,
like
a
story arc.
Because I'm gonna check those the end credits to see if it's like...
And then they had like filling out the Justice Society roster. They had a character called Cyclone, and like I didn't recognize the name or anything, but there was a character in the Justice Society called Red Tornado, and like in this, like she kind of has this like tornado power, and like there was like a red tornado, which was basically like she was like a mom who like put like a kettle on her head and like made this costume out of pajamas, and then she like joins the Justice Society. But then like later on they came out with like another red tornado who was like a robot that could turn into it was like an alien robot that could like had like tornado based powers. So I don't know, they kind of like, this is like
an
amalgamation again. Like a lot of this stuff felt like really fresh. Like I've never heard the name Atom Smasher for like a superhero and stuff, but it was kind of the same with Shazam. Like the story felt like it was like kind of like a fresh story, but then afterwards I was, you know, doing a little digging and I saw like, you know, Jeff Johns had done a story that was like very similar to what was in the Shazam movie, and then prior to that, Jerry Ordway had done a story that had some of the same elements too. So it's like there's just so many like I'm not super well versed in like recent DC comics, and I know they've been doing a lot with Black Adam for like the past, I don't know, 12, 15 years or whatever. And Jeff Johns, I saw he was like one of the producers on this. I think he was like a producer on Wonder Woman. I think he was a producer on the Snyder Cut. He's a producer on like a lot of these DC things and Shazam. So I think, and he's like one of the main guys at DC. So I think, you know, for all I know, there could be like a comic that has like a very similar story with like Cyclone and.
Didn't know I was going to see a team up of Hawkman, Doctor.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I predicted. I'm like, Tom, I know going in, I can guarantee you we're going to see a team up of Hawkman, Dr. Fate, Atom Smasher, and Cyclone.
Well, like Atom Smasher, he's like, I need to rewatch it because he's like talking on his phone to Henry Winkler.
Oh my God, that was great.
Yeah, who played like Uncle Al or something. So I was like, yeah, he should have been Uncle Art or Uncle Arthur, and he's like the Fonz, you know. Oh.
He kicks like the jukebox.
Now that actor who played Atom Smasher, I'm like, he looks super familiar, and it was kind of like, it's like, is he Mark Ruffalo's son or something? Because his like voice and his look, like the curly hair and his acting was very Mark Ruffalo-esque. You know, the Hulk. But he also like reminded me of Joe from Blue's Clues.
Yes, he did.
He kind of had that vibe too.
It's Joe from Blue's Clues.
There were some good like ongoing like recurring jokes of like The Rock like constantly like walking through walls and
Love
stuff.
that.
You know, he goes on that like rampage to the tune of the Rolling Stones' Painted Black.
Oh yeah.
He's like zapping everything, and like that song always makes me think of like Vietnam era.
Yes.
There was that TV show Tour of Duty, and that was like the theme song for it was Painted Black.
My dad watched that all the time. Yeah. Like, and my mom watched China Beach.
China Beach, which had the Supremes as the theme. So both great theme songs.
Because those were on all the time.
Yeah, it is like, I mean, that's exactly it. Like, China Beach was the Vietnam show for Mom, and Tour of Duty was the Vietnam show for Dad. But yeah, maybe, so it was kind of weird seeing like sort of like a modern warfare kind of context with Painted Black, because it's just so like the Vietnam War for me. But it is like, you know, just all this like carnage as he's doing it, and so much CGI, and like I kind of wished for and like in these kind of movies, it's like, yeah, you're gonna have like the CGI battles and powers and stuff, but occasionally I like them to mix in some like old-fashioned stuff where it's like maybe like he's just like holding like a missile or something that's made out of rubber, and he goes, you know, like something like that. And I don't remember much of that. It was like every single power thing involved some kind of CGI, and I like a little of the lo-fi stuff. Like we would have that in like a Sam Raimi Spider-Man or
absolutely.
something.
You want to see some tactile shit.
Yeah, exactly. Occasionally. Like, you know, you don't have to have like a CGI explosion of him busting through a wall? How about just like some like real brittle, pasteboard wall that you make that he walks through?
I'm with it. That's kind of like, I know it's passe to like shit on CGI.
Sure, yeah, it's like, come on, people.
But I mean, I would rather have like lo-fi. Like, I just want to see whatever's on. I just want to see it in the frame.
Yeah, you got The Rock, and it's like, give us a little bit of old-fashioned kind of action,
Yeah, because he's a special effect himself.
Yeah.
Like Arnold, like old school Arnold shit.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a waste to have those scenes where it's like, it's like a video game, and you paste The Rock into it.
I still have to. I gotta like, if you were the guy from ILM working on the Watchmen movie, you have to tell it's like your mom and dad ask you what you're working on. You're like, I'm like creating this dick in CAD.
I'm assistant dick swinger. Andy Serkis played Dr. Manhattan's dick. He's got all the white dots on him. He's like,
as a handstand when he's like full boner and does a handstand. They're like, that guy could do anything. Andy Serkis, an Oscar nomination. Like when he goes up to accept his award, it shows the clip, like, they have the shot on in the theater. It shows his dick. Like, they're like,
he's like swinging on a rope or something,
Like, action! And
he's like swinging on a rope with like two of those like bouncy balls, those like kind of core balls, like hanging from him. He's like got them like looped around him, and he's like looped around his arms. He's got like one on each, and go.
The workout, those giant
workout balls.
They're like hanging off.
Yeah.
He's like, excuse me, I have to get into character.
The movie was like, The Rock is, when the unstoppable force meets the immovable object, kind of that kind of thing. But like, a lot of twists, a lot of surprises here, just enough, and just like a fun superhero movie. It felt fresh.
Very fresh. It was a blast. You know what? I'm like, The Rock I'm so over The Rock, and then you see him on screen, you're like, I love The Rock. He's great. Like,
I mean, I feel like, there's a lot of goodwill towards The Rock, and it feels like, we haven't really seen him in any kind of like amazing thing lately. So this was well timed, and we saw the trailer to the Black Panther sequel, so that kind of got us like hyped up.
It's gonna be great.
Interesting parallels between the two movies, because you have this kind of like, this like sort of fictitious, like modern city, or city state or whatever, that is like, the center of civilization for like thousands of years, and that's another one where it's like, I don't know the extent to it, but it's got a lot of personnel where you're going to be kind of excited to see, and it's like they've been showing off Namor, the Submariner, but like, there's the rumors that like the Fantastic Four is going to show up or something, or Doctor Doom.
I got choked up when they showed Chadwick Boseman in the trailer.
It's like, you gotta, that's how you gotta handle it. You don't just like recast the Black Panther, or like, it's like you have like the Wakanda Forever, and then this had like this like pyramid thing.
Yeah, like it makes me think of either a couple things were coming to mind. I know the
you ate one too.
Either Jay-Z's Rockefeller record symbol, or he's like, or Diamond Dallas Page, the wrestler. He goes self-high five. He would always do this right before he gave someone a diamond cutter.
But let's try to come up with our version that, like, so we'll see people out doing like the Kondak, triangle. They had like a lot of statuary, because like Kondak is like, ancient, had very important in the ancient world and stuff, and so they had like this really cool statue of Black Adam that was kind of weathered, like the Sphinx. Neat. That was pretty cool seeing that kind of stuff around the town. It just had some character, because it was like, it's not like the standard, like Marvel New York, or like the standard, DC Metropolis or Gotham City. It was like a new kind of setting, in a different country. Yeah, it just gave it like, just kind of freshened things up,
I'm literally still dying for Andy Serkis playing Dr. Manhattan's dick in The Watchmen. He swings. They're like, action! Whoa!
1, pill makes you larger. Something.
We were trying to analyze if The Rock did do his eyebrow raise in the movie.
We were waiting for it. I didn't see it.
I didn't see it either.
Yeah.
He gives someone the rock bottom.
I mean, having catchphrases as part of the plot did make me think, like, because it's like, you know, The Rock is so known for his catchphrases, so.
He's like, do you smell with Black Adam's cooking?
There was some cooking. There were some scenes where he like, you know, fries some people with his electricity powers.
That, you know, The Rock's actual one-liners would have been more appropriate.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He called those guys jabronis.
If you track down a copy of the Cave Carson Volume 1 trade paperback, there's a page or two in there of my sort of Shazam riffs, some Shazam story content, and one of the things that I never got to quite fully explore in Superpowers was I was going to put some focus on like the ancient world, and so I had like I had like some stories that take place in heaven before the creation of man on Earth. I had some, but I was also I was going to do the adventures of young Shazam. It was going to be the adventures of the wizard Shazam as a young man, where he's kind of like this, like Moses figure or something. This guy kind of like, you know, wandering the ancient world, getting into adventures before he, you know, sort of becomes this great patriarch of the Marvel family. So this movie felt kind of in line with some of the things.
Dude, that sounds amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Your superpower stuff is off the fucking chain.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, on Patreon, I just recently started working on a thing called Secret Super War, where it's like the ultimate crossover. You know,
love it.
Yeah.
Fucking love it.
So I'll maybe get to exorcise some of those demons. Dude. You've been watching the Black Adam episode of the Total Recall Show. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics and Fantastic Four Grand Design.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli or on Instagram at Tom_Scioli.
Follow me on Instagram at cinema_tomb.
And you can check out my Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search Tom Scioli to see various comics I'm working on.
Follow the show on Instagram at total_recall_.